we're concentrating on this series pretty much most great Sephardi Chachamim of yesteryear, but a rabbi that very much was connected, let's just say, to the Sephardi community, especially in Jerusalem, was Rabbi Yitzchak Oplatka Z'tl. I believe he was born in English year 1819. He passed away in 1900 on the 11th of Shvat. Naturally, that was a tough summer. Become a great rabbi. I believe he'll become in the medical field. He'll be potentially maybe a doctor or something. He'll be a man of the congregation in Jerusalem, very famous rabbi, and he would have an integral part in Jerusalem at his time when he was there. I think he'll be one of the founders or one of the heads of the Dורש ציon school system over there at that stage in time. So let's explore a few of the highlights of the great rabbi's life. Now, he was born in Prague around 1819, 1820. He was, and very, very great. I think at that point in time it was part of the Austrian-Hungary Empire. The Czech Republic, Prague, happened to be at that point in time. Maybe it was Czechoslovakia, I'm not too sure exactly. I believe his father was a merchant in the linen trade, within regards to fabrics, I believe. He would learn under the famous rabbi, the Khatam Sofer, I think in Freshburg, respectively, over there. And it's interesting, while he was a young age, he yearned so much to go to Eretz Yisrael, so he would actually embark on this journey and end up in Jerusalem. So he was a teenager, I believe, at that point in time. And very, very interesting. He would arrive in Jerusalem at 1838. It was probably about 18 years-ish at that point in time. I think many of his family didn't necessarily travel, so he went on his own, and he would be greeted by Rabbi Baruch Ayash, who happened to be, I think he was like related to the Rishon LeZion at that point in time, Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Ayash. So already he had a stronger family friendship connection with great rabbis, especially within regards to the family of the chief rabbi, the Rishon LeZion, at that point in time. I believe he would actually stay even in his house, if I'm not mistaken, the Rishon LeZion's house. And very, very interesting enough of itself. Now, he would become fluent in the language of Ladino. Remember, coming from Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, many people would have probably been speaking, European languages. So Ladino at that point in time, Ashkenazim maybe was not that common. So he would learn it, and I believe he would pray all his tefillot, all his tefillah prayers would be with the Sephardi Nusach, the Spanish Nusach, respectively. And he would dress up like the great Kabbalists, Sephardi Kabbalists at that point in time that were in Jerusalem over there. And I believe it was Harav Ayish would actually marry his daughter, a relative to him, his daughter, I think, Vida Chana. Interesting enough, so he really, really had a very strong. It wasn't just Sephardi; he would marry into Sephardi. I will believe it, never. And he would stay, Rabbi Oplatka, in Jerusalem all of his time. He would treat the sick people. I think while he was going in his travels, I think he was a doctor also, and very much was able to do that at that point in time. Now, it's actually interesting. I think in the year 1917, his grandson Eliezer would be one of the people that would form let's say a medical house of some sort, one of the first ones in Jerusalem. I think in the year 1917. I think in Jaffa Street, respectively. Opletka. Yeah, that's another side tidbit to know about him. He would be able to learn a lot of Torah at this point in time. I think he would actually set up a Kolel Hakemat, Kolel Hod, respectively. I think a Kabbalistic Kolel in his time. And very much, I think there would also be Beit Cholim, a hospital of Mayor Rothschild, also over there, where he would be part of working over there. I think that was also assisted by Rav from the famous philanthropist Moshe Montefiore, respectively. Now, it's actually interesting. I think the famous man Yosef Blumenthal from Paris would actually establish in 1866 a Talmud Torah called the Talmud Torah Dורש ציון over here. Very famous one. It would end up, one of the goals of it, I think, was for Ashkenazim and Sephardim to learn in the same place. I think predominantly it will become a Sephardi Talmud Torah. At the end, many famous Sephardi rabbis will come at that point in time. I think that was in 1866, connected to Blumenthal. And he will be, let's say, one of the founders of the Mosdot in of itself, with a Torah, where it would bring about a Torah learning at that point in time, and at the same time couple it with people learning a trade, inside this school system over there. And the idea was that he would be able to unite Sephardim and Ashkenazim, let's say, together inside this system respectively. Now, I think some of the Lithuanian rabbis or very strict Ashkenazi rabbis didn't take too kindly to this school system and were against it and would protest it at that point in time. And which you have to point out also. So, but he would set it up and really work strong within regards to it. He would be a Rosh Yeshiva over there of this place, of the Kollel. I think he was a Dayan also in the Bet Din. So this Kollel in of itself would, I think, eventually be opened. I think around the year, if I'm not mistaken, I think in the late 1870s, if I'm not mistaken, it would actually open up. They would have the school system. I think it was with the assistance of, there was a great rabbi, the author of the famous book Tzuf Advash, Rav David Ben Shimon, will be one of the people who will end up heading the Sephardic branch of the Talmud Torah at that point in time. And I think they would teach also in Arabic inside this place, inside this institutions, Torah learning. There was many famous rabbis that would also go on to actually teach there. Now, I think eventually it will become a predominantly Sephardi place at that point in time. And I think it was actually one of the rabbis was a Rabbi Orbach, I'm not so sure his first name, who was not for the school system originally, but it would end up being many, many hundreds of people would end up learning there. Possibly in the thousands as time goes on. I think it closes down eventually about 55 years ago in the year 1970. That would have been about 70 years after he passed away. So he passed away, yeah, so that I think originally there was a Lamel school that was in Jerusalem that was a similar idea to this Dorish ציון school system in Jerusalem, but I think that didn't materialize in the long term. So this was maybe an offshoot or some sort. Now I think he passed away in 1900, as we said before, and he was, I think, buried in the Beit Kvarot of Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives burial plot in Jerusalem. He was buried in. What's interesting is there was a discussion at the time, should he be buried in the Sephardi plot, because he was very, very much identifying, keeping the minhagim of Sephardim, and was obviously the principal of the school, Sephardi school, and very much he identified with Sephardim. I think eventually he would be buried in the Sephardi plot at the end, if I'm not mistaken, over there. So that's another interesting tidbit. I think many of his manuscripts, which he had originally wrote, would eventually be published at a later stage or had been discovered. I think he had a great son, Rabbi Rachamim Yosef Chaim, who I think was a Chatan of Rav Asher in Shel Naiman, if I'm not mistaken. And he would continue managing the school of the Dorish ציון after Rabbi Oplatka had passed away in of itself. So he was a very, very famous rabbi of his time. I'd recommend everyone to, maybe we'll do a special video concentrating on some of the highlights of the history of the Dorish ציון school. Maybe we'll explore some of the students at a later date. Now, it's about 80 years of age at the time he passed away. He passed away in Jerusalem. As we said before, he was buried in Jerusalem in Har HaZeitim, in the Sephardi plot over there. He was a famous rabbi of his time, a rabbi we didn't really mention about much beforehand. Now, friends, we're a community over here. We are learning about the great rabbis of yesteryear over here. It's interesting. This Rabbi Yitzchak Oplatka, I think, passed away on the 11th of Shvat in 1900, 125 years ago. So his Hilula was about nearly 4 months ago here from the time of recording, so we didn't get out of order. But as a community, we're growing. Please subscribe to the channel now. We are on nearly 7,000 subscribers, which is absolutely phenomenal at the moment. And we've covered about 1,000 biography videos of great Chachamim from yesteryear. If you descend from any of these rabbis, please let me know. I would love to hear more. If you feel anyone's interested in watching any of these videos, please share these videos to other people also. And subscribe, share, and wishing you all well. Recording this from the city of Bet Shemesh. And if you go on the channel itself, there's a special playlist. It's called Stories of Tzaddikim, and there's a whole list of all the videos we've covered of all the different great rabbis. We've actually covered maybe a few rabbis that were connected to the city of Prague, to the country of Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic. Also, so if you scroll down this, maybe you will see a couple of familiar names. So wishing you blessings here from Israel. Take care and subscribe to the channel, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.